Kimi Raikkonen is among the favorites of almost every single F1 fan when it comes to their favorite drivers. Having started his career in Formula One all the way back in 2001 at just the age of 21, the Finn ended up finishing 10th in points. Although he didn't get a podium, he showed immense promise driving for Sauber that year. He ended up getting a ride with McLaren the following year where he recorded his first 4 podiums, including in 2004. He followed up with another win, but he only had 4 podiums that year as that car from McLaren in 2004 wasn't the most reliable, and he finished 7th in the standings. But in 2005 is where Kimi Raikkonen would make his mark, having his first multi-win season by winning 7 races that year and challenging for the championship, including winning 4 of the final 7 races, which the 7th one of the season was the most iconic, as he would win in Japan following a crazy pass on leader Giancarlo Fisichella. All those wins weren't enough to get Raikkonen the 2005 championship though, as he would wind up finishing 2nd in points, just a few points behind champion Fernando Alonso. However, after Raikkonen had a suffering year in 2006 that saw him get no wins and only 6 podiums, down from 12 in 2005, he would leave McLaren after finishing 5th in points. After 2006, Raikkonen would move to Ferrari, replacing the retiring Michael Schumacher. And right away, Raikkonen made his presence known in the Ferrari as he would get his first win with the team in his very first race with the team at Australia, where he also got the pole that race. And he got 3 podiums in the first 3 races, but afterward he started to struggle, barely finishing in the points and falling as far as 4th in the standings, 26 points behind the points leader. But he was able to lock back in, as even though he was 26 points behind after the US Grand Prix, he won the following 2 races and had a masterful comeback, scoring a bunch of podiums after retiring from the European Grand Prix, finishing 2nd in Hungary, 2nd in Turkey, 3rd in Italy, winning in Belgium, 3rd in Japan, and winning in China and Brazil to snag his first career championship by 1 singular point over the McLaren duo of rookie Lewis Hamilton and defending 2-time champion Fernando Alonso. To date, this is the last Drivers' Championship that Ferrari has gotten with any of their drivers, and the only one since Michael Schumacher left the team in 2006. But after 2007, Kimi would never hit those heights again, as early on in 2008, he got 2 wins in the first 4 races with a podium in between them in Bahrain, but it wasn't the same, and he wound up finishing 3rd in points with a respectable title defense with 2 wins and 9 podiums, down from the 6 wins and 12 podiums from 2007. And in 2009, Ferrari was falling off even harder, with Felipe Massa getting hurt mid-season and Raikkonen not doing too hot. It was announced that he would leave Formula One entirely following the 2009 season because he had made his debut in another racing division. But his 2009 F1 season would go out with a whimper. He would have a good stretch toward the second half of the season that saw him get 4 straight podiums, including a win in Belgium, which would be his final win with Ferrari in his first stint, and he would go on to finish 6th in points. The 2009 season for Kimi Raikkonen wasn't a bad one. 1 win, only 5 podiums, and he had no poles for the first time in his career since 2002, and his 48 points in the Drivers' Championship was the least amount he had had in a single season since 2004, which is why during that season it seemed like he got a little bored driving in the uncompetitive Ferrari, and he decided to make his switch to rally racing, which is what we're going to look at today. Not just his stint in rally, but his return to F1. Kimi Raikkonen's departure from Formula One to rally racing and his eventual return back to the open wheel sport is one of the most interesting and overlooked things that I've ever seen. We're going to look at that today. Kimi Raikkonen's departure from Formula One to rally racing and his eventual return, and how interesting that was. In January of 2009, I guess Kimi Raikkonen kind of was getting bored during the F1 offseason, so he made his initial rally debut in the Arctic in the exhibition of the race they have, the Arctic Lapland Rally, which lasted from the 23rd to the 24th, where Tommi Mäkinen, a fellow Finnish rally driver, prepared him in a Barth, and Raikkonen finished in 13th place. And then At the end of the 2009 season, or in the midseason when it was announced that he would leave Ferrari and eventually Formula One as a whole, he made his World Rally Championship debut in the Rally Finland, which took place between late July and early August, starting just 4 days after a second place finish in the Hungarian Grand Prix. And he ran third in his group and finished 15th overall. Well, he didn't finish 15th overall. He was running third in his group and was running 15th overall before crashing out in the last stage of that Saturday. In December 2009, Kimi Raikkonen would announce that he would shift his entire career from Formula One to the World Rally Championship beginning in the 2010 season as a full time driver for the Citroën Junior team. With sponsorship from Red Bull, he and co driver Kaj Lindstrom would attempt to tackle 12 of the 13 rallies in the 2010 WRC calendar, the exception being Rally New Zealand. Now, Kimi Raikkonen was shifting his focus to an entirely different discipline of auto racing. We all know rally racing. If you don't really know what rally racing is, they're not like side by side racing with multiple cars on track. Usually, it's multiple cars taking turns, tackling a race course to compete for the quickest time to complete the entire course. And these cars are generally like Subarus and Mitsubishis and stuff like that. So with Citroën, Kimi Raikkonen was ready to tackle the 2010 World Rally Championship season. How would he do now that just being 2 years removed from winning an F1 World Championship, none of those accolades matter when you transition to an entirely different discipline of auto racing? The 2010 season would be a rocky one for Kimi Raikkonen in the early part of the season. In Sweden, he got his car stuck in the snow and was forced to get out of the car and dig it out of the snow, where he wasn't able to recover the time loss and finished 29th overall, which he followed up in Mexico by failing to finish the event and was classified as a retirement. But he was able to have some optimism in the Jordan Rally as he was able to get his first career points by finishing in eighth. The World Rally Championship point system is the exact same as the F1 point system, I'm pretty sure. But Kimi Raikkonen would turn heads in the following race in the Turkish Rally by finishing fifth overall, almost 7 minutes off the winner, the GOAT of World Rally Championship Racing, Sebastian Loeb. Where in that race, the top five overall in the final stage was Sebastian Loeb winning, Peter Solberg second, Mikko Horvonen in third, Sebastian Ogier in fourth. All four of those drivers are always running in championship level equipment and challenging for championships year in and year out, with Loeb and Ogier winning a combined 18 championships between the two, and Peter Solberg winning the 2003 championship. So Kimi was with those guys finishing in fifth. Could he turn some heads and start challenging for better results and possibly even podiums or maybe even a win? After, of course, missing the New Zealand round, as they had already said that they would miss before, Raikkonen would come back for the following race in Portugal, and over the next two races began to struggle, finishing 10th in Portland and 11th in Bulgaria, where he was approached with a challenge for the following race in Finland. This was going to be a big race for Raikkonen in his home country, where retired four-time WRC champion Juha Kanukin, I'm probably butchering the pronunciation, but forgive me. He hadn't raced in the WRC since 2002 when he retired, but he decided to come out of retirement to enter the race and challenged Raikkonen by saying that if he couldn't beat him, then he might as well go back to Formula One. And those two had a strong battle for the seventh position, but Raikkonen unfortunately had a crash in the 12th stage of the rally, leaving him in 25th overall. Luckily, with him battling, people realized that he could probably try to continue contending. He just needed to find a way to try to improve his performance, which would come in the following race in the Rally Dutchland. His second ever asphalt rally, he was able to score his first career stage win on the last stage of the rally and finishing seventh overall. But unfortunately, the high points would hit there. Retirements in Japan and France, and having to sit out the Spanish rally because he crashed on the shakedown lap and could not repair it in time because the roll cage was all damaged. And the final race in Wales, he would finish eighth and would be classified 10th in the Drivers' Championship with 5 points finishes and 25 points on the season. But unfortunately, outside those two races he missed, he was basically the worst driver of the drivers competing in the WRC that participated in nearly every single event. Everyone below Raikkonen basically battled, I mean, not battled, they participated in only like 6 or 7 races on the season. So Raikkonen was a majority racing competitor. He competed in a majority of the races, but was finishing last among all of them. And that showed everyone that he wasn't really the craziest driver in rally. Sure, he had some potential, like in Turkey when he finished in fifth, but the Citroen Junior team wasn't really happy altogether and would drop him following the 2010 season. But Raikkonen wasn't ready to give up on rally yet. The Citroen Junior team would disband operations for the 2011 season and wouldn't come back until 2012. And Raikkonen would keep the assets of the team and start up his own team named Ice One Racing that would compete in the World Rally Championship in 2011. And Raikkonen he wanted to compete in most of the championship and potentially all of it if he could. But as we know now, he had to skip a few races because of funding. He started the opening round in Sweden, finishing eighth despite spinning multiple times in a stage. And then he skipped the following race in Mexico. And then he competed in Portugal, where he was able to finish seventh overall. And then finishing sixth in the following Jordan Rally, another Jordan Rally that was good. And despite these consistent points finishes, he had to skip the next 2 rounds in Italy and Argentina. But he followed it up with a 7th place overall finish in the Acropolis Rally, and then finished ninth overall, scoring points in his home rally in Finland. And then the Rally Dutchland, where he got his first stage win the previous year, he was able to finish sixth. He was able to finish sixth overall, yes, and record his 7th consecutive points finish in the 7 races he had run so far for his own team in that Citroen. But unfortunately, after the year, he would unfortunately withdraw from Australia. But then the final 3 rallies of the season had 3 straight retirements, unfortunately. And he would end the season with 34 points on the season, which was actually 9 more than 2010, despite competing in less races. And overall, he would finish 10th in the Drivers' Championship. Rally racing wasn't the only thing that Raikkonen did in 2011, but we'll get to that in a moment. But at the end of 2011, he would end up deciding to give up on his efforts in rally racing and would go back to his roots for the following year. But the 2011 season in the WRC wasn't the worst for Kimi Raikkonen. He performed better with his own equipment compared to the Citroen Junior team like he did in 2011. But unfortunately, the podium finishes never came, and he was never able to finish higher than sixth in any of those races. And those final 3 rallies where he was not able to finish did him in, and he shut his team as the Citroen Junior team would open back up again for one more season in 2012. If Raikkonen had potentially started his career in rally and spent a long time doing it, maybe his rally career would have a different story outside of not being mediocre, but just not good enough at the moment. But for what we know now, in the few rallies he did compete in across 2009 to 2011, he was okay, but just not competitive enough to compete with the top guys on a full-time level. But again, remember how I said before that rally racing wasn't the only thing he did in 2011. In 2011, he also expressed interest in trying NASCAR, starting in the Truck Series and potentially running in Nationwide and Cup Series events. And in early April, he was able to sign a deal with Kyle Busch Motorsports to run a limited schedule. While this would only come to be one race, this would happen at Charlotte, where he was also able to land a deal with them to drive in the Nationwide Series for their team as well. In the Truck Series race, he was able to survive and finish in 15th, a respectable finish for the F1 champion in his debut. While at Charlotte, he would go on to finish 27th in having a more struggling time. Trucks are more similar to rally cars in a way because these big stock cars are definitely different handling than trucks and rally cars. But obviously, that being said, trucks are nowhere as similar to rally cars. They just are closer in similarity to those rally cars compared to the big bodied stock cars. But after his random NASCAR effort, we would come on to know that years later he would actually come back to NASCAR to run in a select Cup Series races in 2022 and 2023 for Trackhouse Racing and road courses as part of their Project 91 deal. But he would end up going back to his roots after his interesting rally stint and this weird NASCAR stint. He was going back to his roots in Formula One starting in 2012. In the week before the 2011 Singapore Grand Prix, several reports came out that Raikkonen was looking to return to Formula One with Williams because they found him at the team's headquarters. But in November, Raikkonen denied the Williams rumors by announcing that he would return to Formula One, but with Lotus on a 2-year deal. Lotus hadn't had any success, and they were basically rebranding because before that they were Lotus Renault GP, like they were a merging team. But in 2012, they were going to split and become their own entity and just be Lotus F1 team. Raikkonen would join them for their 2-year deal spanning from 2012 to 2013, and his teammate would be Romain Grosjean. People were wondering how Kimi would perform in his return to F1. He hadn't driven a single Formula One car since the 2009 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix with Ferrari. But across the first 5 races, it looked exactly like Kimi hadn't even lost his touch at all. 7th in Australia, 5th in Malaysia after having another strong race. Although he had a bad race in China where he finished outside the points, he followed up with his first podium with the team just 4 races in to his tenure with them by finishing 2nd in Bahrain, and he followed it up with a 3rd place finish in the Spanish Grand Prix. Kimi's season would still continue to be strong, getting 2 more points finishes afterward before finishing 2nd in the European Grand Prix, and after a 5th place finish in Britain, he would go on to get 3 more podiums in a row, which include a 2nd in Hungary. And he was as high inside the top 3 battling for the championship. But unfortunately, after that, he would have 5 straight points finishes afterward that were 5th to 7th. But he was still really good in points. Although Sebastian Vettel and Fernando Alonso were having a huge battle for the championship, Raikkonen was just outside of it. And by the time they reached the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, this is one of the most iconic moments in Formula One history, as Kimi Raikkonen had the car to beat that day, and he went as far as telling his crew chief and team members through his radio to stop talking because he knew exactly what he was doing, leading 36 laps en route to getting his first win of the 2012 season, his first win since the 2009 Belgian Grand Prix with Ferrari, and his 19th career Formula One victory. And this helped him finish 3rd in the championship after getting 2 more points finishes afterward. 3rd in the Drivers' Championship in his first season in Formula One since 2009. He was beating drivers such as Lewis Hamilton, Jenson Button, Mark Webber in points. All 3 of them were race winners, and they finished below him in points. His former teammate Felipe Massa was under him, and his teammate Romain Grosjean missed the race but had 3 podiums and finished 8th in points. This allowed Lotus to finish 4th in the Constructors that year, but with Raikkonen getting a win and finishing 3rd overall in the Drivers' Championship, he did not lose his touch at all. And this transitioned into the 2013 season, where in the first race of the year in Australia, he went on to have another strong race where he was able to get the win after leading 27 laps to score his 20th victory in Formula One competition. And after Malaysia, he recorded 3 straight second-place finishes in China, Bahrain, and Spain. More points finishes followed before finishing 2nd for 2 more races in Germany and Hungary. After failing to finish in the points for the next 2 races, he would go on to get 2 more podiums in Singapore and Korea, and a couple of more points finishes when they entered Abu Dhabi again, where he could try to get another win in the race for the 2nd year in a row. It's important to note that his win in Australia in the beginning of the year would go on to be the last win for any F1 team that wasn't Red Bull, Mercedes, or Ferrari to win until the 2020 Italian Grand Prix. Unfortunately, Raikkonen heading into the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix had fueled many tensions with the Lotus team. On many occasions just leaving the track really quickly and avoiding media. It was kind of weird. He would just disappear, and this kind of ruined his relationship with the Lotus team, but they were willing to put up with it. Unfortunately, in the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, he didn't have a good chance to defend his win there from the prior year, and he unfortunately crashed out. He was sitting third in points at the time, while Sebastian Vettel was literally just winning every single race. I don't know why I said that in an accent. But unfortunately, after that, he had been complaining that he had back problems ever since the Singapore Grand Prix, and he opted to have back surgery and missed the remainder of the season, and Lotus opted to have Heikki Kovalainen to run the last two races in relief of Kimi. Kimi would end the season with 1 win and 8 podiums, which is an increase over 7 from 2012, and he would drop to 5th in the final driver's points after that season. While Lotus overall would finish 4th in the constructors once again, with Romain Grosjean finishing 7th in the driver's points. After 2013, it was clear Kimi hadn't lost his touch. He had gotten Lotus, of all teams, their first 2 and what would be their only wins in F1 competition. And after 2013, the team would sever ties with Raikkonen, allowing him to become a free agent to do whatever he wanted for the next year, where we would come to know that Kimi never lost his touch and he would move back to his former powerhouse in Ferrari, where it was a rocky beginning, but he was able to get stronger every single season, and was able to score one more win in 2018 in the US Grand Prix and finish 3rd in the championship that year. But after that, he was replaced by Charles Leclerc, and he would move to replace him at Alfa Romeo, where he spent the final 3 years of his F1 career, getting a best finish of 4th in Brazil in 2019, and at the end of 2021, he would retire from F1 competition after making his debut there 20 years before. Kimi Raikkonen is one of the all-time greats and one of the greatest drivers in the 21st century, not only getting 21 career victories, but a championship with Ferrari in 2007 by over some of the greatest drivers to ever do it. And to make this even more notable, this is the last drivers' championship for Ferrari as of this upload. Many drivers have came and went since then, drivers such as Sebastian Vettel, Fernando Alonso, and other drivers, but were never able to win the drivers' championship since Kimi. But after 2009 and their bad season, Kimi left to an entirely different discipline of auto racing, where although he didn't perform too bad, he wasn't that great, but it's still an interesting little part to look at, and his little dabbles in NASCAR. But he was able to come back and show everyone that he did not lose his driving touch, and immediately became another strong contender when he returned to Formula 1 in 2012 with Lotus. And through 2 seasons, he was able to score 2 victories with Lotus of all teams. I just want you to think about that. Lotus. This isn't a powerhouse team or like a team that had a lot of success in the past like Williams. This is Lotus, a team in their first season in 2012 as their own organization, their own entity. He got them their only 2 wins, a bunch of podium finishes, and helped them finish 4th in the Constructors' Championship twice. And of course, even though he went back to Ferrari and eventually Alfa Romeo to retire, it's important not only that we know Kimi Raikkonen's journey to rally racing and back, but how interesting it was after leaving a championship-winning organization just 2 years after winning a championship. He went to an entirely different discipline of auto racing just to come back and show everyone that he did not lose his touch at all. Kimi Raikkonen's career, after his first stint in F1, his rally stint, and those little dabbles in NASCAR, and his return to F1 was so extraordinary. I hope you guys like this video. Please like, please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.